Mayor Bloomberg's racial profiling through stop and frisk policy in New York is taking more and more heat. The debate rivals stressing the policy was only pulled back under pressure. And tonight, we now go to the source, an expert and exclusive guest, retired Judge Shira Shendlin, a 22-year veteran on the federal bench, ruled against Bloomberg's stop and frisk policy and is an expert on the exhaustive public record. The New York Times has reported over 5 million stops were made in Bloomberg's tenure. And in one year, for example, say 2011, 87% of those stops were people of color. The judge ruled the policy unconstitutional, finding it was, quote, indirect racial profiling, each stop a demeaning and humiliating experience for those mostly innocent individuals, and noting no one should live in fear of being stopped. This was a huge story. Remember a little bit of how it was all covered at the time.
Tonight, a federal judge has come down hard on one of the most controversial police tactics in the country, ordering changes to New York City's so-called stop and frisk policy.
The judge's scathing decision condemned the New York police.
The judge said that tens of thousands of New Yorkers had their rights systematically violated.
Today, the court called it what it is, which is racial profiling. Judge Shendlin is here on the beat. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. You spent years, up to 10 years, on all of these cases. You are literally one of the most knowledgeable experts in the country on this very controversial practice. What do people need to know about it, and what, if anything, was incorrect in last night's debate discussion?
Okay, so what they need to know is that the United States Supreme Court in Terry versus Ohio said you can stop and frisk people, but you have to have reasonable suspicion that a crime is being committed or about to be committed. That's the only basis for stopping and frisking somebody. In fact, the frisk part is that you have to believe you're in danger. Okay, that wasn't the case in these 5 million stops. The vast majority, there was no reasonable suspicion. There really wasn't. It appeared to me clear from the evidence that what we had was racial profiling, going after a target group, which was young black males, 18 to 25. That's what was going on. The police targeted themselves to those neighborhoods where they believed the crime was heaviest, but they also believed that's where the criminals were heaviest. So they went after these groups, and the stops were mostly dry. 90% of these stops resulted in no further law enforcement action. The frisks produced very little, if anything, 0.75 of 1%. Had anything, any contraband, any guns. So it really was a failed policy that terrorized, I would honestly say, not to mention humiliated, hundreds of thousands of young minority New Yorkers. And that's not a good thing, because
so as policy, the mayor ran the policy in a way that you say terrorized people based on their race.
Yes, but I want to say the policy started before this mayor. It started with Mayor Giuliani. Bloomberg picked it up. Bloomberg expanded it enormously. It grew under him to its height in 2011.
And I'll say this, whether you do or not, as a former judge, Mayor Giuliani had a tough policy that was controversial on predominantly black neighborhoods in New York.
That's right.
And Mayor Bloomberg came in and said, let's make it even harsher, to the point that it was ruled by you unconstitutional.
That's true. And there was a second half to your question. You said, what did people say last night that was wrong? Well, Mayor Bloomberg said, when I realized it was bad toward the end, I ended it and dropped 95%. That is not accurate. In the last 2 years or so, it began to drop dramatically. It dropped 67%, not 95%. But it wasn't because he realized, had an epiphany that it was wrong. It's because of the court rulings. That's what happened.
Right.
I ruled.
And Joe Biden said that the Obama administration stopped it. I thought you stopped it.
Yes,
was Joe Biden correct or not?
Of course he's not. You got in just ahead of me. I was going to say that Vice President Biden was totally
lucky I'm
wrong
not in
too.
your courtroom.
That's right. He said that the Obama administration appointed a federal monitor. Totally wrong. I appointed a federal monitor in August of 2013, who didn't take office for 10 months because Mayor Bloomberg insisted on trying to appeal my ruling and getting it overturned.
So simply put, Joe Biden, in your view, took credit for something that judges actually did.
Absolutely.
Before I lose you, the other big legal issue we heard was Elizabeth Warren pressing Mike Bloomberg's use of non-disclosure agreements, including with women. Your view of that exchange, could he release those people now?
Oh, he absolutely could release those people if he chose to. Now, some of them may not wish to be released. He's right about that. Some of them want the privacy of that agreement. They don't want their stories told. But what Elizabeth Warren said correctly, give them their choice. If they're released and they choose to talk, let them talk. If they don't want to talk, that's fine, too. but he's not giving them the choice. So then Vice President Biden said very clearly, very simple, release them.
Judge, this is a day and a time in our history when federal judges are in the news a lot for all kinds of reasons. They are rarely out in the public square. As a retired federal judge, you are able to be. I really appreciate you coming on the beat.
Thank you. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.